How'd you do it? You had your phone the last time.
Yeah, I went on the phone last time.
So how'd you do it? Don't tag me first. Maybe that was the problem.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's see.
See, that's invited to watch.
Let's see. Oh, hold on. Yeah, now you can add. Okay, cool. Sweet. Let's give him a second, guys.
Is the volume on there? Or no, we don't need the volume.
Yeah, we don't need all that stuff.
Hello.
Matt, what's up?
Here we go again.
Hello.
Take
Yeah,
two.
take two, guys. You got a shot. It's so funny with the. Let's take this off. Silly off. All right, we'll give it a second here, guys. We get them going.
Cool.
Shane, what's up? What's up?
I got
Deborah,
this.
guys.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
you got it.
Right.
Beauty. All right, awesome. All right, let's give Doug a second here. Let's make sure. And then if anybody...
Did we scare you
follows,
off?
I know. Hey, John, what's up? What's up? Julie, hi. Hopefully, let's see with Doug. Let's see. Give him a second. Come back on. Hopefully, he'll end up... What's his phone? I wonder if he's got an... I'm pretty sure he's got an iPhone. I think he does, actually.
Well, is it blue or green when you text?
No, it's blue. Yeah. On phone. Beauty. Yep, he's on. Awesome. Yeah, Doug, so make sure, buddy, on the phone. Go through your phone, brother.
No invite, just
no
when
invite.
you start watching, we can
Yeah,
add
just start watching, Doug. Yeah, we'll add you in a second, buddy. Just basically stay on. Oh, yeah, Joe, us too. Second time, exactly. No doubt, Aaron. All right, guys, let's see here.
Just going to see how long we can stare at the camera. Got our media guys. All you have to do is, are you watching us live, Doug?
Yeah, Doug, if you're watching, buddy, just literally
just
go on. So just go on, buddy, and yeah, we're going to be able to add you in. We just need to see that you're watching and that you're on. So just go through your phone. They've got the media guys helping out. Figure it out, bud. Figure it out.
This is what happens when too many hockey guys get together.
I'm so give it to them.
We tried.
Nice.
Here we go.
See.
There you
watching, okay.
Why can't we add?
Yeah, why isn't it saying add on his feed? So he's watching. Strange. Why can't we add him? Hold on. Bring Doug. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Here we go, buddy.
You should be getting there.
Is that a little family pic there?
Oh, yeah.
Do you see? We just invited you to...
Whoa! Whoa! Hey, I even had 2 millennials helping me out on that.
Yeah,
we got it.
Figure it out, bud.
Hey, I'm working on it.
It's
it only took 8 minutes.
We just want to make sure the people that were here really wanted to see this.
Yeah.
That's right. We just wanted to test the limits. Okay, well, to those who are left, thank you very much.
Yes, exactly. We're all getting better here. We're all getting better.
Yeah.
Getting better every day.
It's so funny. What's up, buddy? How we doing?
I'm good, man. It's good to catch up with you finally. It's been far too long.
Oh, I know. Well, what's an interesting story here is, first off, when the other day we were touching base there, and I'll tell you what, man, one of the things that irked me a little bit from our conversation when I walked away from it, I started to think about our past, right, of how we met. And I started to think, you know what, dude? You're pretty lucky, man, that I was born and gave you the opportunity to go where you went.
Yeah, you're probably right. So for those people who don't know, Vinny and I were actually traded for each other.
Biggest trade in ECHL history.
Probably the biggest one ever. It was bigly for sure. And we just found out yesterday, actually, that not only did we get traded for each other, but I literally moved into your apartment and also then your bed.
Dude.
But you didn't get the girl.
Well, true. Very good point. But yeah, so we found that out yesterday. Good times for everybody. We really enjoyed it.
Oh, it was awesome, man. It was awesome.
And obviously, I mean, hey, I liked Augusta, but Charlotte's an unbelievable city.
Unreal city. The apartment you got was unreal. Unreal roomie. I mean, you just
all true. I think you wore Conrad out, and I had to settle him down. I think the quiet nights were important.
Mac was so pumped. He was like, "Thank God, get out."
Now I only have to go out 3 nights a week.
Yeah. That's awesome, buddy. That's awesome. Well, beauty, man. Well, thanks for taking the time. Obviously, we know that in the hockey community, this is a big hot button. Everybody wants to know, get more information, and the beauty of technology today and social media is that we can sit here and have a conversation, educate the parents and young players, and help them understand what it's going to take to get into the top league in the country, right, when it comes to that amateur and so that. So thanks, buddy, for taking the time and jumping on.
No, happy to do it. Happy to do it. And it's also nice that I'm getting chirped by the people in the office as well around, and they're texting me as this is going on. So
there you go.
Like, we can't believe you're doing this. You're so millennial.
Yeah, yeah, that's what everyone's been saying all morning.
That's awesome, buddy. Well, welcome to 2018, bud. Good
yeah,
job.
thanks.
In my spin rides, if you don't know, so I have a Peloton and I love it. So if anyone's thinking about it, I highly recommend. But if you don't know, like some of the instructors, my favorite one, she always goes, if you've never heard this song, add 5 more for a youth tax.
Is that right? See, now the Peloton thing, I think I probably need desperately, because when your BMI is 4 digits, it's a problem.
Dude, did you see that they're coming out with the treadmill version?
No, absolutely not. Under no circumstances would I ever put myself through that.
Dude, I am pumped for that. That is going to be fun.
Yeah, no way to do it. No way to do it.
Pelotons all day long. Yeah. I'm going to bring us back to...
We need to make like a Peloton hockey version. Right?
That would be fun, actually. That'd be really cool. That'd be a good time.
Like you're sitting there playing, like virtual. Somebody's going to come up with it now.
I hope so. I hope somebody.
Me and
we're the brain trust for it.
Just 2%. Just 2%.
Yeah. You can stop it too, but I'm going way past that.
Oh, beauty, buddy. Beauty. So, well, let's get into it, right? Obviously, people are here to learn more about the league and whatnot. So, you know, in terms of your role, right? Like, let's chat about that, of player development, everything that you've done, right? What is it like? Explain to people, like, hey, what are you in charge of? What are you doing there? And stuff like that with the league.
So, long story short, is my job is to help identify the best players from not only all over the U.S., but then all over the world, and try to help bring them to the USHL. We have a number of different ways that we do that, whether it's through combines or showcases or tournaments. Our job is to identify those elite players and then start helping to educate them on the path. One of the problems that people have is, how do you take a 13-year-old player, 14-year-old, 15-year-old player, and draw the line from that point to being a Division I college hockey player, and then, just as importantly, an NHL draft pick and an NHL player. And so we really try to do that. I speak all over the country. I speak at all the USA Hockey events, obviously all of our events. And our goal is to really try to make sure that American players understand what the path is and what the rewards of that path can be. And then, of course, how do you get there?
Exactly. And that jumps right into, right? Perfect segue into that of how do you get there, right? So, like, let's go to the basics, right? When it comes to skill set, right, and also mindset part of it, what are the things that are non-negotiable of, hey, to play in our league today, here's the things that we just know, guys. Like, here's the things that you want to be aware as a young player, as a parent. Here's the things that have to be intact now that you have to understand.
You know what's interesting is, so my career, I went from high school to junior to college, college to pro. And, you know, I went from the East Coast League to the American League. I did, you know, different jumps along the way. The biggest jump that I ever took was from high school to junior. And what really winds up happening is every single player in our league was probably the best player on their team. Right. And now you put all of those guys who are the best player on their team and you bring them to our league. So in order to get to our league, if you don't compete, you don't have a chance. And because it's a daily competition, you know, people ask often, you know, what if I'm healthy scratch? What if there's a problem? You know, the bottom line is you need to be able to work your way through that adversity in order to be able to play and to be able to contribute. So competition is key. If you can't skate, you can't play. The adage is true. And then probably next, you have to be able to think the game. You have to be able to understand time and score. You have to understand where your team is in the standings. You have to understand who's on the ice for the opposing team. Where are you in your shift? Are you in the first 15 seconds of your shift? Are you in the last 15 seconds of your shift? And what decisions should we make accordingly? And so if you have those three things and the skill set as a player in terms of all the other intangibles, you got a good chance of playing in our league. But if you don't, this league's probably not for you.
Yeah, exactly. You know, what's amazing, right, is like everything you just brought up on that side from competition, right, and making sure, and the thinking process. Like, that's a big part of, obviously, as you know, like we zone in on, is helping players understand the thinking process, because at the youth levels, getting that education is really tough, right? Because they're just focusing on the basics. And like you said, a big thing that dealt with for years in the youth level, U16, U18, high school, it's all the same, is that players, what they think needs to happen versus what they actually know. And there's such a big jump going from that youth tier 1, U16, U18, high school to your league, because it's like you've never experienced the competition. You've never experienced the thought process of just how fast everything goes at this level. So when you're younger, that's the idea of how to get people to become more aware of, hey, yeah, there's the stuff you're doing on your team's level and the competition that you're surrounded by and that you're going up against. But then how do I get out there, right, and zone in on figuring out, well, what are the best, what's the best of the rest looking like? How do I put myself in an environment that pushes me to that level? Because unfortunately, during the season, competitively, it's a whole new level. It's a whole new step.
It's a totally different level, and it's a daily process, and every player kind of figures that out as they go. I didn't actually learn my game until I was 26 and understand who I was. And it's a constant process. It's a constant evolution, and understanding exactly who am I as a player and working your way towards that. In terms of players and the competition, the USA Hockey has a national camp every year, which is roughly, let's call it the top 200 players in the country in each birth year. But in order to get to our league, you probably have to not only be in the top 200, but you're probably closer. And just to be drafted, you have to be in the top 100 players in that group, right? So you're taking that group, which every single American player who has aspirations of playing higher levels, they're starting in those camps. Regionally, they're working their way from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to the state of Wisconsin, to the Central District to make it there. And then that group is cut in half just to get drafted. Well, that group gets cut down again by the players who actually matriculate to our league. And so what we talk about is, okay, so now let's just use a rough number. You got 40 players left who are making it to our league. Well, now not only are they competing against those 40, but they're competing against that 40 who are 1 year older, 2 years older, and 3 years older. And then just when you get to be older, you wind up with this next group of players who are, high-end players coming in behind you, competing with you. So if you're not willing to, all those things that you did as a first-year player to block shots, get pucks out, work extra hard, do all that stuff, I guarantee the next guy who's coming behind you is doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, 100%. And
so it's a constant process.
Exactly. And what's fascinating, right, is like one of the things we always hammer away at, right, is that the idea behind all this stuff, right, of life skills into sport is the concept behind it is helping players identify if I want to be successful in life, the reality is we're not all going to be pros in the NHL and all that stuff, but we're all going to be pros in life. And I think that's the education that you guys really provide, is that once you're in that environment, that's it. You're becoming a pro now. Like literally, it's the same exact, everything you just described is no different than what we face when we're at the professional level, right? And that it's that same feeling inside that you're preparing them for college process and life after, hockey and all that stuff. And I think that's an important piece too, is that people realize that once you hit that point, it's knowing who you are, like you said, but then that other part of realizing like it's a process that continues on and you can never stop. Like you keep growing and you have to keep hammering away. And that's a pro. That's what a professional is.
It is to a large extent. But I also think that for the young players, you try not to complicate it too much, because I close every presentation that I always talk about. That whenever I'm speaking to families, I'm speaking to players, I tell people all the time, don't shoot pucks because your mom or dad tells you to shoot pucks. Shoot pucks because you love scoring goals. Don't go to the gym and lift weights because your mom hired you a personal trainer or your coach told you to do it. Lift weights because you love running someone over. Lift weights because you love driving the net and scoring goals. Or your job is to block a guy out and you wind up being +3, and that's the way you get that confidence. That's the way you get that feeling. And so all of those things are just so important to this process. So it's not that it's just you're a pro. It's rather you are trying. For me, it's a constant thing. You were doing this your whole life because you enjoyed it. Keep doing it, and understand that just because you're up at 6:30 in the morning lifting weights, there's a lot of people out there doing the exact same thing, and you need to continue to work to enjoy yourself and continue to enjoy the process, because the moment you stop doing that, I mean, it's probably true, and I see a lot of people that I played with, the best players you ever played with traditionally are the ones who loved it the most. They're the ones who just enjoyed going to the rink, having a blast, And yeah, were there times where it was not as much fun? Of course, that's life. But they took that approach that they were going to continue to work towards their goals and enjoy doing it.
Beauty, man. Play for that feeling. Amen. Hey, guys, if you agree with this, likes, loves, share. Perfect right there. That's spot on. You know, because it's like that internal, that's the part that I think is like a big misconception of parents. They feel like, hey, if I go find a babysitter or I find somebody to convince my child to want to do this, then maybe we'll get this done. Maybe you'll get inspired to do it, right? And that's the whole reality, that it's not the way it works. Like, you just have to genuinely know, I just think about this all the time, right? Like, when we were growing up, it's what we thought about all the time. Like, we just always thought about the game and what we can do and how we can get better. And that's just what was on our mind naturally, right? We didn't have anything of mindset or even strength and conditioning. Like, all these things back then didn't exist. We play like there was no tomorrow. We played 8 hours, roller hockey, street hockey.
It didn't matter. Yeah.
That was it. Like, that was our upbringing. No lessons, none of that stuff.
And I think that for everybody who's out there and people who are watching, you are not, as a parent, you are not going to be the one, because let's hope that not too many kids are watching at 10 a.m. They should be in school, right? And if you are, you can watch this later. But you're not the one as a parent who's going to walk to school and go to school with a bruised foot because you blocked a shot, right? You're not going to be the one as a parent who's running up a hill with a weight vest on at 6:30 in the morning. Your kid is. So at the end of the day, you can't fake it. Eventually you get found out. Your kid, and there's so many things that people can do. That doesn't mean that you don't push your kid. That doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities for understanding how to identify goals and encourage them to work towards it. But there's that fine line. And because, when you get to a place where every single player, whether it's junior or college or pro, it is a really, really tough environment. And the opportunities are to the players who put the work in and enjoy putting the work in. And if you don't, you don't make it. It just gets really simple. That's the benefit of sports, is eventually it weeds you out.
Yeah, 100%, man, 100%. And what's so fascinating about that, right, is that the challenges, right? Because we know that's a big part of, hey, we can simply say and state that of, like, you got to want it, right? Because we know that. We come from that cloth, right? But then on the other side, from a challenges standpoint, like, so when you see the things that you're dealing with all the time and you see the questions that come up, right? What are some of the biggest challenges, whether it's you're noticing in terms of the parental influence and environment, versus what even coaches are noticing in the league of the challenges of dealing with a player today versus what they dealt with 10 years ago? What are some of the things that you're just noticing that's popping up? Because we talk about this all the time. It's all unconscious of, you're taught this behavior. You come from an environment. So I think this is an important, question and something.
I think one of the questions that I get the most is, do you need a family advisor? Do you need an agent? And you'll get a kid who is 13 years old and the parent's like, I need an advisor and I need an advisor. And you just don't. If you are a player in the USHL and you want to manufacture a trade, let's say you play for Sioux City and you're unhappy there and you want to trade, well, my first bit of advice is the player should walk into the coach and say, I'm not happy, take ownership and say, listen, I pride myself on being on the power play. I'm in and out of the lineup right now. What do I need to do in order to do that? Because if you're not on the power play and with one team, what makes you think you're going to be on the power play with somebody else, right? So you have to develop that skill set. So I think one of the primary questions that I get all the time is about whether you need an advisor. And my advice is very simple. Almost no players do. If you want somebody that you can bounce ideas off, my first point of contact would be their coach. My second point of contact would be somebody else who who understands you as a player and understands how you can grow and develop as a player. Because the people who are around you, you might have an assistant coach, you might have somebody in your organization, you might have somebody who's an alum of your school, or somebody you have a connection with just from summer league that you can ask those questions to, who understands your game and understands you. Far too often with an advisor, you just get into a situation where they genuinely don't know you necessarily as a person and as a player. They might be able to sit there and say, you know what, you're a right wing, you need to improve your skating. All true. But you don't need to pay somebody in order to do that. And that doesn't mean that there aren't good advisors out there, but it's something that I think that people should really understand that it is not a necessary thing. The University of Wisconsin is not going to give somebody a scholarship because the player has the right advisor.
Exactly. Spot on. And that's precisely when stepped into this realm, right, of the performance coaching and all that is exactly that, is that I saw what was going on of you're just getting, we talk about language all the time. You're getting a general, hey, here's what your coach said, right? You need to work on, driving to the net more or whatever it is. You're just getting a general idea. But what I saw, right, and we both experienced this with our own advisors, agents, whatever it was, okay, great, you're giving me this information, but how is that really helping me to develop and get better, right? What are the steps then I can do? And this is always the dance, right? Because what happens a lot of times for especially young amateur players that you're in a team environment. The team is the team, right? There's only so many thoughts a day where there's only so much energy that I can invest into you personally when I'm in an organization, right? It's tough. But if you're looking to do something on your own, that's the beauty of it, is that there are coaches, there are other parts that are like, understanding, okay, what is it specifically that I need to know? So here's the team's model. Here's what I need to know inside the team. But then personally, what steps can I take, right? What is it about my attitude? What is it about my performance? What actions can I take? Getting in the gym, getting on the ice, off the ice, visualization, all these things is exactly the stuff that you need to be filling your head, understanding that this is how I fit into their puzzle. But that's a big part, that they're giving you the puzzle. This is the general direction when I'm on a team, but then it's you on your own. You have to do the work. You have to dig in, and brings it back to your original point of that's that part where you have to be so driven and determined that's the part that you have to understand, is that has to come from you inside. And because I've dealt with it with some players that go into USHL even, and they're struggling with, go talk to the coach. Right? Like you said initially, like go in and go talk to your coach. It's amazing to me. I had a pro last year in Finland. He was struggling to go talk to his coach. And it's like, this is wild. You're 24 years old and you're struggling to go talk to your coach. And so little things like that of where the direction, right, of understanding what path I need to go on, that's the missing ingredient. We're talking about communication all the time. But then that direction, what do I need to do to perform with the team and in the team structure? I think that's another part that parents need to understand, is that you can say, hey, my little Johnny's a goal scorer and all that stuff, and it's great, but his goal scorer is going to have to fit into this environment one day where now, hey, we're around a team.
Right,
We're around
right.
people that
Well, and to that point, I talk a lot about, there's so many, it's so hard to get to the NHL. Right. So, but I think let's just use that as a point of reference. So to be a top 6 forward in the NHL, you have to be in the top 180 players, roughly, in the course of 10 birth years. That's really hard, right? That's the level of skill that it takes to be a top 6 guy. But I tell people all the time, listen, you can't score goals in the NHL from the American Hockey League. If you're playing for the Providence Bruins, you're not scoring NHL goals, but you can score them from the fourth line. Exactly. Right? And so therefore, in order to understand your ability as a player, how you can contribute to a team, let's use Rich Peverly as an example. He was a player that was playing when we were around. He wound up winning a Stanley Cup with Boston. He was a guy that had all the scoring ability, that he dominated the American Hockey League from an offensive point of view, but he was able and willing to modify his game in the National Hockey League in order to contribute, in order to be able to stick around. And then he had the flexibility of centering a line with a couple guys who are really physical, but also jump onto a second power play when needed or be on the penalty kill. And instead of winding up in that trap of being, okay, I'm a skill player, that's the only thing I'm able to do, in which case his entire career would have been focused in the American Hockey League, he was able to grow and to develop and then be a really valuable asset and sign some big contracts. And that's something, going back to what you're talking about. You go in and talk to your coach, he might say, listen, you know what? I think you're the 7th best forward on our team, but in order for you to be on the power play the way that you want to be, you need to make sure that you're contributing, and this is the role that I have for you, and if you do that well, you're going to get the opportunities you want. Versus just sitting there and saying, okay, coach doesn't like me, he hates me, it's his fault. And it's a choice. And I think that one thing that, if you're lucky as a player, you play for 10 years, right? And if hockey's an 8-month year, that means you have 80 months as a serious hockey player. That's it. And if you throw away a month or two with bad attitude, that's a significant portion of your career.
Exactly. And there it is right there, summed up from a mindset perspective, is that the value of time. Like we always talk about thought, play, and time. Those are our chords that we always stick to. But the time management piece is always about, it's not about time management. Yes, you have to have control of your schedule, know all that stuff. It's more of the value of time. And that's the part, is the sooner you can understand that, you know what, I'm 13, 14, 15, and understanding these type of principles, and understand that, yes, we have an ego. Yes, you want to have it your way. Yes, you're tearing it up at the youth level. But you have to understand that there's a whole nother level that you have to be aware of, that you have to be conscious of, taking into your game, taking into your development process. Because we see it all the time, like as an example, right? You see the players that when they're younger, you're amazing. You know, they're 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh my God, you're signing with BC. You're incredible. Wow. And then 14, 15, it's like, whoa, what happened to you? And the struggle. And that's a big part. I know you guys do it too, of where players go from being the man to hitting the league. And it's like, whoa, wait a second. What happened to, I could dangle everybody. I could go in and out.
Right.
Where did that go?
Eventually, you watch the NHL. Okay, the only player that looks, I mean, obviously Sidney Crosby, but you watch Connor McDavid sometimes with his skill set, you're like, he's playing a video game and everyone else is playing for real, right? but eventually you get to a stage, and every single person finds that level for them, where they can no longer physically just dominate. They have to do something else. They have to find a way to contribute. They have to find a way to be an effective player. You know, nobody in the NHL, I mean, obviously Wayne Gretzky had 200-plus points, but nobody in the NHL is having 2 points a game. So all these kids who have 5 goals as a peewee, and they think it's fantastic, well, eventually your game is going to have to change because that goal production is no longer sustainable. And so the coaches who hammer on you and push you and are willing to tell you, you know, difficult truths. And I'm not saying hammer and screaming and yelling, but I'm saying having a set, rigid structure of, this is how you improve, these are the standards that I have for you, is really important. I'll give a prime example. So my high school coach played 16 years in the NHL, Lowell McDonald. He was fantastic. For anyone who's watching, make sure you like it, Lowell McDonald out there. He was an absolute legend. So one time I got the puck, and, you know, had some nice awards, had some nice things like that. I get the puck behind the net, I go coast to coast and scored. And he says, geez, Doug, have a seat. You missed the breakout pass. And, you know, but he was not trying to coach me to be a good high school player. He was trying to coach me to be an effective player at the next levels. And that is the part that I think is so important, that, you know, just because a player gets benched for a period or misses a shift or taken off the power play, the parents who understand that that's part of the process and that's a nice learning point are the ones who are oftentimes going to find that their kids learn the best and that they're going to learn on their own, versus having a parent who goes in and says to the coach, well, you don't know what you're talking about, and is confrontational. Or, and I talk about this a lot, the first 5 minutes when a parent gets in the car are the most important 5 minutes after a practice or a game, right? Everything's fresh, everybody's talking about it, and you can sit there and you can say, okay, you know what? I like this, I didn't like that, your work ethic was this, but at the moment you start saying, well, your coach didn't do this, you should have done that, that immediately instills in your son or daughter, but your son, for our league, the perception that it might be someone else's fault, not theirs. Exactly. And that's a dangerous thing, and that's a hard thing to reel back in.
Yep, exactly. And it's interesting, right? I always give the analogy of, like, we learn from strength and conditioning, right? You need to get your protein in within 30 to 60 minutes or whatever it is, right? Because your body's heated up and going. Emotional, what people don't realize is the emotions are the same exact way. Your emotions are heated up, and you're wide open to hearing things. So when you get in that car and you're coming off the game and it's just like, whoa, I'm feeling all this energy, and what you say and get put into that mind is bingo, right there. It creates that emotional effect where that sticks, right? That goes in and that goes, yep, I'm sticking in there 30 minutes out, because you don't even have time to process yet, right? It's still, your body's heated, your brain, your emotions, your thoughts are heated, right? So it's all just like, oh, what ended up happening? And then bam, you just drop in that little nugget and it goes, oh, even though later on you try to, hey, calm down, keep everything cool, all this stuff, it doesn't matter. What you got from that emotional reaction, that's what sticks, that's what gets ingrained. And then when the stress kicks back in of high level, anything you do, your emotional stressors get back up because the adrenaline kicks in. You got to think fast. You got to react naturally. There is none of that stuff. And when you peg that language in the brain, or that emotion, more importantly, there's your sign. There's where so many of the issues come in.
Most parents that we run into, they always have the best intentions of their kids, right? That's what they want. So when a parent has a kid, whether it's in hockey or academically or socially, they want a few things from their kid. They want their kid to work hard. They want their kid to have, be a good person, and they want them to get educated. Those are pretty much, you have a baby, it's like, okay, if I can do that for my kid, we're all set. Somewhere along the line, you insert hockey into that process, or some other things. It could be gymnastics, it could be a different sport, or it could be academically. All of a sudden, the goals that were originally out there get discombobulated, and you have different influencers telling you this is what you need to do, this is what you shouldn't do, and that's a concern. And what happens is players or parents all of a sudden start thinking, okay, well, this guy must know his kid played Division I hockey. There isn't a correlation to that. He might have some bits of advice, but he is not the person who's going to absolutely lead you in that direction. And so for the parents who are out there, what I would say is that, okay, that first 5 minutes in the car, the first couple words out of your mouth, the first couple sentences should be consistent with those first 3 things that you said when my kid started playing hockey. Oh, this is awesome. It's a lot of fun. I hope he enjoys it. I hope he works hard. I hope he, this makes him better. And if they do that, it's a win-win. And then, of course, you can dive into some of the more nuanced stuff with, okay, I thought maybe you didn't move your feet in the neutral zone. I thought you should have gained entry with the puck. I thought you should have moved the puck a little bit quicker. But again, if your first few thoughts are those original things, it's going to have far more weight in the long run than some of the immediate negativity.
Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating. Like you make me think of back in the day. I would go back to playing days of. It's interesting of like all the little testing questions, right? So even back then of thinking about like one of the things of guys I used to play with, I used to always ask them the question of where I saw they had the healthiest mindset. They were just always under control. Like you just sense they just had this different aura about them than the rest. And I think about, Rod Aldo, like, his beauty. He ends up coaching us. Did you play with Rod? Rod.
No, but I know him. He's a beautician.
Oh, absolutely. Super beautician.
It's the formal name. It's full name. He's a little old.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's definitely out there. We all. But the one thing that I remember distinctly of having, hours, there's so many conversations with him and other guys like him of where when they had that, that just surreal, just that surreal, it's just like calm. You ask them all the same question of like, what was it like growing up with your parents? You know what? My parents, when I got in the car, did you have fun today? Right? Did you have fun? Do you still love it? Good. All right, we go back. And literally, that's all. That's what he said. Yeah. Like, that's literally all my dad would say to me all the time. He just told me, did you have fun today? Good, we go back.
Yeah, and I normally got the I worked hard or I didn't work hard. That would be the only thing that I would add. You either didn't back check or you didn't do something. There's always something, but that's life. You want people who are going to give you honest feedback. And at the end of the day, there's going to be you think about a Major League Baseball player, right? Who goes to the plate. He's got 300 plate appearances during the course of a year. He's going to have a stretch where he goes 0-10, 0-12, 1 for 20. That's just part of it. And it's the process that not allowing that lack of success to be an indicator of future failures, right? Rather just saying, okay, I understand these are the things I got to do. I'm going to continue to work on my swing. I'm going to focus. Maybe you've had a couple bad games. Maybe you didn't prepare the way that you needed to. And it's a reminder. And then you keep moving forward. And same thing when it's going well, because sometimes when things are going well is almost worse than when things are going hard. Because when things are going hard, they're always that people are asking questions to say, how do I get better? What do I need to do? Whereas when people are scoring goals, they've got a goal every game. Their team's the number 5 team in the country. They're killing it. They're loving it. They're not sitting there asking for help to improve. They think that they understand that they know everything.
Exactly. It comes back to what we do with that part, right? Everyone thinks it's like, oh, well, if you sign up with this program, it's because you've got to be messed up. Like that you need some kind of help. And it's like, no. Like we've got players that are legit that want that extra edge of just knowing how to manage when things are going good. How can I get more? Not just sitting there and just saying, hey, because I need it. It's because understanding like performance, like sustainability.
You want to get better.
The word you used earlier, sustainability. That's what it's all about, because ebb and flow, stress is all going to happen. But sustaining it, you have to know your identity. You have to know how your emotions work. You have to know, because the stress and all the craziness doesn't stop, right? The one year, the young bucks are coming up. The other year, you're veteran. It never ends. It never ends.
Well,
it's a constant battle. And when you look at some of these really, really high-end NHL players, and they retire a little bit early, you look at a player like Mario Lemieux a long time ago, right? Or players who kind of walk away a bit before you think that they should. It's not because that they can't do it anymore. It's because of that the competition that is required to have success at the level that they want. They oftentimes aren't wanting to do that anymore. They've found other things. It could be kids, it could be family, it could be whatever, and they've said, this is no longer for me. And that is the level that you have to compete at. You know, it's not hard. I mean, it's hard to get to our league, but it's hard to have success in our league. It's hard to have sustained success in our league. It's not hard to be a Division I hockey player, right? Lots of people are able to get there. It's hard to have success. It's hard to be in the lineup every day because every single practice you're out there proving yourself. And that doesn't mean you're not going to screw up. There's an ebb and a flow with everything, right? But and you're gonna learn things off the ice. You're gonna learn things on the ice. But at the end of the day, if you want to have the success that you want to have, and I was a player who I went up and down. I said earlier, I didn't fully understand my game until I was 26. Maybe I needed some clarity at a younger age. Maybe I needed some different assistance. But that was a maturation process that I needed to go through in order to have the success that I eventually would have. But that, to me, is something where when you start to understand that that's the competition that you're going to have and that's the level of commitment that it takes, because every single kid who's in a room playing AAA hockey all wants to play in the NHL. They all want to play Division I college. They want to be in our league, right? And it's just math. There isn't enough spots in each of those levels to be able to take all the players that want to get there.
Well, I have to tell you, similar in thought, but something we've been experiencing is we notice it's not just the players, it's the whole family. It's like they're fighting so hard to get their commitment. And then they get the commitment, some younger than others. And then it's like they take their foot off the gas and they're like, oh, I got my commitment. I'm done. So I just want to know if you had anything to shed on that, because we've been experiencing that. And it's like they're fighting so hard. They're working so hard as a family. Like the kids working hard, right. The family's really engaged. Like, oh, we got a commitment. We're good now. Like, I don't need to do anything. I'm just
right.
Later.
You know, the commitment part of it is really tricky, right? And I don't think that it's a good thing. I don't think the college coaches think it's a good thing. I don't think the USHL coaches think it's a good thing. But it's in this, if I don't do it, he's going to do it, and then I've got a problem. Agents, same thing. They're like, if we're not talking to younger kids, we're not going to wind up having the success that we want to have. We're not going to have the amount of clients that we need in order to be a successful business. Right. And so, but again, once you have that commitment, it's not over, because now you're competing against so let's just fast forward. Let's say you're just a young player. Now you're competing against all the players who've committed ahead of you, all of the committed kids who are going to commit to that school below you, and eventually you're all going to be freshmen, right? And you're going to have to compete against those kids for a finite amount of spots in the lineup. And I can tell you, as somebody who's watched a lot of games from the stands, it's a lot more enjoyable to watch it or be competing in it than it is to be up top. And it's that process of when you're going through it from week to week, from month to month, that you have to keep grinding. Don't sit there and say, my goal is to be a Division I college commitment. My goal is to be an All-American. Okay, I've got my commitment. Now I want to be an All-American. All right, I want to be an NHL draft pick. I want to, sign an entry-level NHL contract after my junior year of college. Well, those are new goals. So if the family shifts their goals, and maybe it's you want to sign your entry-level contract after graduating from an Ivy League school and being a first-round NHL draft pick, whatever it is, you just need to find that new goal that you can all agree on and work towards as a family. And, I will say that one of the things that is really interesting is people ask me all the time, is it worth it? This AAA hockey, high school hockey, all the prep schools, all this stuff. And if you play Division I college hockey, the rate that you're going to graduate with is 90%. And so all those car rides, all that time, all that investment that you put in your kid as a hockey player, you're eventually going to get back by the fact that they're going to graduate from college and be able to be a productive member of society. Even us, in theory, we're productive members of society. We tried awfully hard not to be. We all go through it.
We tried.
Right.
But she stuck around.
Well, hey, that's her choice. That's her choice. Maybe she needed somebody at a younger age to say she should have raised her standards.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, I mean, that's the biggest part, right? Is understanding that in the end, all of this, the environment of what we're doing, right? That's the reality is if you're looking to push and keep pushing and pushing, you got to understand, like, these are the different, things you're going to deal with along the way, right? This is the road. These are things you have to accept, right? Number one, as an individual, what comes up with it, you got to become aware of the process. But then more importantly, the accountability. I think that's a big part of, we always talk about that accountability factor, right? Of understanding that, bless you, of understanding that.
Tight.
Thank you.
Right? Is that the accountability process, that's the part that is the argument that everyone's creating, right? These kids don't know accountability, right? And the argument always goes back to, well, as adults, why did that get created, right? We all know the deal of, at youth levels, these guys are playing those kids. They're playing them all the time and putting these other kids on the third, fourth time, barely playing them. So why do you think all these things are going on versus the youth product, the youth development process is supposed to be all inclusive? Like, and again, depending on the environment you're in, you know what you signed up for. And when people start to freak out about it, it's like, well, you went in knowing that this is the style of coaching or this is the style of the organization that you're playing for. So that, I tell players all the time, you don't have that right then once you've signed and once you're in there to then turn around and say, well, this other player's playing over me. You know what you signed up for. And I think that's the biggest part is for people to understand it's nice to have dreams and want to play at the USHL, NHL, and all that, but do you actually realize what you're signing up for? Like, do you accept what the environment's all about? Are you aware of what it's going to take, the amount of energy, the amount of time that's going to take away from your life? Do you understand that, right?
I was going to say, this is hockey today, but this is life later on. There's
right,
a job
right.
you're going to want.
That's what I was going to say.
Boss. Like, it's not just about the hockey. It's so much more than that because
Exactly.
Figuring it out now is only going to help you later on. Like, if you have a boss that's driving you nuts, you go hire an advisor to go.
Right. You just quit your job. Yeah. I mean, and for each player, it's hard to go through that. So for example, I committed to Union, and the coach that recruited me left in the summer prior to my arrival. And that was a hard thing for me to deal with. Now, eventually, you get to a point where your own individual enjoyment is tied to how you have to work and how you have to compete. And the factors that are around it, you can't control. You can't just control, if your boss at work winds up changing jobs and you really enjoyed working for him, you can't just sit there and say, well, I'm not going to do anything anymore. You have to work. You have to continue to show up. And that's something that for the players who are involved, that's a lesson that they can take away. And when parents can encourage them to understand, okay, this is some adversity. These are maybe some of the reasons why. Maybe your coach isn't liking these things that you're doing, but go talk to them, communicate with them, because coaches aren't mind readers. They've got 20 players on their team who are worried about, and they're worried about who should be on the power play. They're thinking more on a macro level, and you might be worried about the one time in the second period you didn't get a puck out. Right? Which is something that coach witnessed it, he saw it, and more than likely he's moved on from, and he's focusing on the next shift. And so as a player, you need to understand that they call it the spotlight effect. It's not everybody in the building is watching you. They might be eating popcorn. They might have dropped their cell phone. They might be talking to another parent. They don't see every single thing. Same with your coach. There might be a play that happens, an incident that happens behind the play, but the coach is watching, the play in the offensive zone. He might not even see it. So understanding that, and therefore for the player, just continue to work and do the things that they can to help the team, and hopefully that they're enjoying it. If they do that and the parents can support that, the player's going to wind up being far better off in the long run.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Was there something, the question?
No, that was my
okay, cool.
That was it? That was the only question?
Yeah, that was right.
Okay.
No, that's awesome feedback, buddy. And, like the biggest part, right, in terms of takeaways and all this stuff, and the spotlight effect is so it's everything in terms of understanding that our egos are big. We all have it. You have one. She doesn't have one. She's lovely. She takes care of all of us.
Yeah, I mean, we all do. We all have an ego.
Exactly. And so that's the biggest part, right, as an athlete, is managing and understanding my personal, what I'm thinking versus the environment, understanding, being compassionate, understanding your coach also. Like, so many times that players think that coaches, they hate you or they're out to get you and all that stuff. And it's like, no, they have pressure. They have also, like, they're trying to put it all together with their job, with their family, creating balance, right, with their own time of, like, you know what, sometimes I need to decompress. I need to do something for myself. All of these things that it isn't there. And that's the part where we fail to realize because of exactly what you said. Spotlight effect is much bigger when you're younger, right? Because that's all you know. Mom and dad just do nothing but take care of you until eventually, well, now we go out to the real world of 16, 17, 18 juniors, and it's like, whoa, wait a second. I don't have mom cooking my eggs all the time. What happened?
Right. And if you can get, I was lucky enough. I had a housing mom who did the eggs. So, you know, I didn't have to do that until much later.
Lucky.
You see your roommates.
Yeah, that's it.
I had good roommates. Yeah, some of the roommates would cook.
Yeah. But I, you know, from my end, you know, for the players and for the families, it's about understanding what the process is, and it's understanding what the goals are, right? And so, all right, my family was very academically oriented, and there's 60 Division I schools. At the time, there's only 45. Well, my dad put me through an exercise where he literally stood there and he said, I want you to look at every single Division I school, and I want you to decide, like, where does this fit into your future? And I said, you know, I didn't want to go to school in Alaska. I love Alaska. It's beautiful, but I didn't want to go to school in Alaska. Well, guess what? Now there's 43 Division I schools at the time, right? And you keep going through it, and you start eliminating schools based upon whether it's location, whether it's the size of the school, whatever it might be. And then you start to realize that there might only be 20, 25 Division I schools. Then you understand, okay, what are the things that I need to do in order to achieve those goals? And that was a shared ownership between myself and my parents, understanding, okay, this is what we're working towards, and then also understanding the steps that we needed to take in order to achieve that, right? So I was in high school, I needed to continue to work, and then next thing you know, I needed to play junior, which was a deviation from a strictly academic path. And then I played junior for 2 years. I wasn't able to do it after my first year. I didn't get my Division I opportunity until I was basically 19 years old, and then I have a great 4 years. If I could go back to Union College and start it all over again, I would, I assure you. And then you move on. And so, but it's something that the goal setting and understanding and the shared ownership between a parent and a child can be really, really productive in the long run. Because eventually that kid is going to have to set their own goals and have to work towards their own goals.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo.
So I have a question that's kind of been coming up a few times here in the comments, but there's always a lot of questions on how much to do, how many combines, how many events, how many showcases. And as we know, the business of hockey in the summer has grown and grown and grown, and it can be really intense. And I think people feel pulled in different directions as far as, well, do we need to be seen at everything? What do we need to do? You know, we have philosophies on it, but I wanted to ask you, because it is coming up, you know, what is your thought process on that as far as how much do they need to be seen, I guess, in those terms, I guess.
So great question. I get it all the time. You know, I get probably 20, 30 emails a day, and it ratchets up as we get closer towards, can I get to the combine? How do I get to the combine? What are the things that I need to do to get to the combine? And so, you know, from my end, that's obviously fantastic that there's that level of notoriety for our league, and to be able to have players who want to be able to come to our combine to be seen. But I think a few things are important, right? I think it's important that no matter how many events that you do, you build in a structure to have some time to do other things. Maybe it's go fishing. Maybe it's play with your brother and sister. Maybe it's be with your friends, because it's madness. If you're going every single weekend from one rink to the next, let's just talk about a summer. Let's say you have 8 weeks for a summer, and you decide that for 5 weeks, you're going to go to hockey camps. When are you lifting?
Yep, that's all the time.
When are you lifting? You know, and so that's part of development as well. And so you have to recognize that for you as a player, you're going to have to work on different areas of your game, and that might not be going from one camp to the next, to the next, to the next. I think that from a USHL point of view, in terms of the events that we see the most of our scouts, college scouts, clearly USA Hockey does an outstanding job with all of their national camps. Those are regional, and then you work to, you know, a district, and then you move on to the national camp. To me, that's the one thing that I tell everybody: do it. You can't miss that, because that eventually feeds into a lot of really high-end stuff at older ages. Secondarily, I feel very comfortable and strongly that I think what we do is outstanding with our combines. You look at the number of Division I commitments that we get. You look at the fact that 25% of the players wind up getting drafted right away. You look at the success of the players even when they aren't drafted right away, like a guy like Paul Cotter. Here's a player who comes to our combine. He wasn't drafted in the USHL in the Phase 1 draft. Comes the following year, he winds up being a mid-round draft pick. He goes, he gets drafted by Lincoln. He doesn't make the team. He goes to the North American League for a year, dominates, basically for the first time in his career as a point-of-game player. Then he's in the All-American prospect game and an NHL top prospect game. He's committed to college, and he's going to wind up being an NHL draft pick this spring. Right? And so from our end, we feel confident at the product that we give. But I caution people, you shouldn't go from one to the next to the next to the next. And if the event you can't make is ours because you've got another commitment, it's not going to be the end of the world if you miss one thing, right? You've got entire seasons to move forward. That being said, I think that the opportunities, you should ask, you should be proactive. Who will be there?
Right.
Who specifically will be there? And if they say we're going to have 20 scouts there and they're all from a Tier 3 junior league, well, if you have no intention of playing in Tier 3 junior, then why are you going to that event? So I think it's important to continue to grow and to look at what opportunities are there, the cost-benefit analysis, and doing your own research, not go from one to the next to the next to the next.
Yeah, beauty. And it's interesting, right, as people are coming up, everyone's got different parts about it. But at the end, right, so it's clear, guys, of like everyone's different. Everyone's different, like you said, right, is that, yeah, this is a general guideline of, yes, you have to train in the off season. When are you going to put that time in if this is where you want to go, right? But the reality is, yes, some people live in non-traditional areas, and maybe competitively they're not getting what they need during the season. So maybe they're doing more strength and conditioning during the season, and then they can do less in the off season to travel and do these other things to get seen and all that. So there's different ways and different strategies along the way. But most importantly, it's the direction, right? Is that you have to have that plan and figure that out.
Yeah, and I think as a parent, so if you're looking at your vacation days, let's just compare and contrast it, right? So let's say you've got 2 weeks of vacation or 3 weeks of vacation. You would plan out your vacation. You'd say, I got this wedding, I've got this, I need to do these different things. Well, it's no different than for your kids' hockey. You can sit there and understand, okay, well, we've got all the USA Hockey stuff. We're expecting to make these camps. So we're going to block these off with the expectation and hope that our kid can make it to the national camp, that he can make it to the central district or whatever district you're in. And so we're going to block those off. And then we're going to supplement that with maybe one or two other events. Like, for example, the teams in our league have different camps. Well, part of that is understanding, okay, what does Sioux City look like as a city? What does the rink look like? What is the infrastructure of the organization? But going from one to the next to the next to the next, there's a fatigue level, there's a lack of enjoyment level, and you're not able to put in your peak performance. And obviously, I hate to say this, when kids show up, the first thing that I'm able to notice if they're in shape or not, right? And so if you're going to do something, make sure you're doing it well and make sure that you're prepared for it.
Exactly. And that's, you can't fake action, right? You were saying earlier, that's exactly it, of the being in shape. That's a non-negotiable, right? It's amazing how many people don't realize it. Like,
I try to negotiate that. I'm still negotiating.
Back in the day, you could get away with all kinds of
stuff.
Right.
It was a little bit different.
Exactly, right? Now it's just like they're machines, right?
Yeah, never had a six-pack.
Yeah.
But your age is so important, too. Like, for the younger players, like, you don't have, like, enjoy being a kid. Make sure your kid has an opportunity
bring my cell phone charger,
to enjoy
please?
being a kid. Because you'll never get that time back. You have when they're older, you have the rest of your vacation days to use to take them around for hockey. But when they're little, this is not the kind of stuff to be worrying about. Get out there, sunshine, sunscreen, whatever. But like, get out there, get some fresh air, go fishing, go to the beach, whatever. When they're young, don't get obsessed over this stuff, because then you're gonna look back and you're gonna be like, wow, I don't think I ever took a family vacation my entire life until I was like 30 years old.
I couldn't agree more. I feel very, very strongly about it. I was really lucky. Our family blocked that off. So we went to northern Wisconsin every year. We went fishing, we played golf, we did all sorts of cool, fun things. And I loved it. And it's become a part of my life still today, and the memories that I had and creating new ones. And then on top of that, we traveled internationally a ton. And so that was something that we valued. We took the time and effort to do. I think that some of the stuff that's out there where you can combine, an international trip and play some hockey, that's okay. But again, you shouldn't just be building your life around hockey. I hate to say this, more often than not, families have more than one kid.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're traveling to Detroit every other weekend and Chicago and St. Louis and you're gone 3 or 4 weekends, what are your other kids doing? Right? So I think people can get lost in that process. But I think, again, if you go back to what your goals are from sports and you build around that, you're going to wind up having more and more success, because if your kid likes it, he's going to put in the work, because, quite frankly, he doesn't view it as work.
Exactly.
I'm charging my phone here. Turn around.
Bingo. Nice.
We've been going for an hour. So.
Oh yeah, we've been at her. We could be talking about this all day. Dude, this was absolutely awesome. Guys, again, right? Share it, like, and love it. What do you guys think? If there's any questions, right, pop them out there. Again,
I do want to say a quick thank you too to you, Doug. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
No, this is awesome, and
it's a lot of fun.
I hope you don't get chirped too bad in the office. Thought you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful, man.
For all the tech help. It was great to get a little bit closer to my millennial self.
There you go. No
doubt, man. And that's what it's all about, right? It's the communication, just for people to understand. This is the reality. For people to understand, right, that this is the reality that you're dealing with, right? And that's the biggest part, is understanding, hey, this is the truth of what it's going to be like. So the more you can just prepare yourself now to understand, hey, this is really what I want to do, well, having answers like this is absolutely priceless, right? Coming from the man, the myth, the legend.
I think just as important is understanding if you shouldn't be doing it anymore. Just as important, if you sit there and say, you know what, my kid isn't enjoying this much. I had a conversation the other day with a good friend of mine. We were talking about a couple players that were playing AAA, and they moved to AA, and now they're playing high school hockey. And they got out of the AAA circuit, but their kids are doing great. They're enjoying high school hockey. They're having a blast. They're playing other sports. So it's not always just about what you hope is the pinnacle. It's about, you know what, if my kid at 18 years old, he has a great hockey experience, he moved on, he goes to college, that's a win too. And understanding when to kind of cut bait is just understanding as to when to go for it and push the boat out.
Bingo. Exactly. Beauty answer. So true. So true. Well,
I'm glad I had so much to say today.
Your questions were potent.
Me and I are together.
Those were high percentage plays.
Quality over quantity for me today.
I joke with Vinny that basically, it's like you guys go to the grocery store. He's like, no, I'm just going to sit in the car and I'm going to work for the next half hour and I'm just going to do something. Like, you're out doing something. He's just, broadcasting live from a parking lot.
There you go.
That's it. Like that's the dream. That's the new dream.
It might be.
Don't ever take this guy to a grocery store. Bad idea.
What's that, buddy?
Try more adventurous locations.
Yeah. First, like in the middle of a game, right? Just go out in the middle of the game and say, hey, I'm on the ice right now.
That's what you do during the tournament in the summer.
No, I mean, honestly, from my end, a lot of fun. We enjoy trying to help as much as we can from a league perspective and from a personal perspective. I mean, I coached pros to kids. I've had a lot of fun playing. It's something I'm still passionate about. I still enjoy playing. Although I'm slower and faster than I ever was, which is, coming with the territory. But it's a situation for me where it can help kids along the way, enjoy the game more. They're going to play longer, and whether they achieve their goals of playing Division I college hockey, being an NHL draft pick, or playing in the U.S. or not, if they have that foundation, they're going to have success time after hockey, which any way you cut it is a hell of a lot longer than the time while they're doing it.
100%. Enjoy the game more. Enjoy the game more. Figuring that out. How do I do that? And that's the core of all of it. So, beauty, brother, beauty.
Catch up.
Yes.
Oh, you're the man. Thank you so much, guys. It's awesome. And
go on.
Hey, buddy.
For getting us, and again, for those who missed it earlier, Vinny and I were traded a long time ago, and we forged a friendship out of it. Not trade, we were for each other, and literally swapped roommates and apartments, and so fun stuff.
And you got the better deal.
Hey, again, I got to go to the Masters in Augusta. That worked out really nicely. First row, 18th green on Sunday. So that worked out. But I will say that Charlotte was an unbelievable place to live and a lot of fun. Great city. There's a lot still there. They never left. A lot of the
guys. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Cool.
Oh, beauty, buddy. Cool.
All right. Thanks so much. Look forward to talking again.
Yeah, same here, brother.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.